This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Tunisia's presidential election to be decided in a runoff vote, pitting two political outsiders against each other. Spotlight on gender-based violence as South African President Ramaphosa set to address urgent sitting in Parliament. And Sudan's Prime Minister heads to Egypt for talks. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live and I'm Karen Roberts in Nairobi. Also coming up in the programme, United Nations rules on fuel shipping to hit Nigeria as the cost of diesel goes up. And in sports, Ethiopia's athletics team buoyant on their medal chances ahead of the IAAF World Athletics Championships kick-off in Doha. Tunisia independent candidate Kais Saied and imprisoned media mogul Nabil Karoui have advanced to a runoff after obtaining the most votes in country's presidential election. Lawyers to detained media mogul Nabil Karoui are now seeking his release from jail before the runoff. Karoui, who built his appeal on high-profile charity campaigns, is under investigation for alleged money laundering and has been in pre-trial detention since August the 23rd. Kais Saied has been advocating for a radical decentralization of power with local democracy and the ability to remove elected officials from office during their mandates. The official date for the runoff is yet to be announced.
This is a new step. We are opening a new step for everyone to build a modern Tunisia. We hope the campaigns for the second round will be conducted fairly for both candidates. And for this reason, we demand the release of Nabil Karoui, which will allow the campaign to be a source of pride for the Tunisian people.
Kais Saied is leading the first round of the early presidential election with 18.4%, followed by Nabil Karoui with 15.6% of the votes.
Following the end of the first round of the early presidential election, within the legal period, the counting led to the following result. Because none of the candidates got more than 50%, the two candidates with the highest voting will take part in the second round.
Experts assert that the presidential election took part against the backdrop of a serious social and economic crisis in an atmosphere of rejection of the political elites.
This vote is a message to the ruling parties and the opposition. Tunisians are fed up and have voted for two outsiders because they are looking for change.
Many Tunisian and foreign observation missions noted that violations recorded during the election silence period and on election day were minor and could not influence the election results. They described the early presidential election as free, fair and transparent.
Our 3,000 observers have confirmed the data and results of the election authority. We did not record any important violations. The whole election process from the campaign to the vote counting was smooth and independent.
EASY members said that the election authority is able to hold the second round of the presidential election on the same day as the legislative polls, scheduled for October 6th. According to the board of the Independent Higher Authority for Elections, EASY operates in a climate of independence and is under no pressure from the government, the ruling parties or the opposition. The election authority adds that preliminary results show that two anti-system candidates, Nabil Al-Karoui and Kais Saied, are leading, and this reflects the independence of the authority. Abdel Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
Moving now to South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa will address both houses of Parliament today after earlier calling for an urgent session. The sitting will address and debate the rising cases of gender-based violence and femicide. Well, according to South African crime statistics, about 3,000 women were murdered last year, with one woman being killed every 3 hours. This is 5 times more than the global average. That's according to the World Health Organization. Another 41,000 cases of rape were reported between 2018 and 2019. Our reporter, Yolisa Njamela, brings us the story of one rape survivor of the rising levels of gender-based violence in South Africa.
Enough is enough. That's what these protests are about, and there's been plenty of them in this country. These women and some men want to put a stop to the abuse, violation, and the killing of women. There are endless stories. Phindile Nkruma's is just one of them. It was in 2005, in the dead of the night. A group of men broke down her door in her Tembisa home, pointed her with a firearm. Then they took turns to violate and rape her. She would later learn that there were 8 of them. They would then take her out of her house to a deserted area and raped her once again. As if to punish her some more, she tells us that they then inserted a plastic bag in her private parts. Years later, Nkrumah is still deeply wounded by that episode. After serving a short period in prison, incarcerated for raping her, her perpetrators are out on the streets. She's had to move from her area to avoid seeing them all the time, opening her emotional and physical wounds all over again.
I told myself, you know what, I'm not going to cry anymore. I will fight. As long as I'm still alive, I will fight. And I got a job at 1&9 doing survivor support. For me to come from Tembisa to Joburg is a struggle. Every day struggling. Because I have to ask for the driver to pee on the way to come to Joburg because I cannot hold my urine. They mess up my bladder.
She also tells us that her pain is unbearable because she's been failed by the system. Many survivors of rape and abuse feel that society and the justice system fails them. In fact, they get re-traumatized ever so often. Gender rights activists believe that, among many other things, in order to end this scourge, socio-behavioral change programs are very key.
I'll give you the example. When we were going through the HIV/AIDS scourge for the first time, we actually had a broad-based 365-day social behavioral change program. It was on media, it was on schools, it was everywhere. There's no place where you could go where we were not told about HIV/AIDS, how to prevent it, what it is, and to end stigma around it. We're not doing that with GBV, yet we have a national crisis.
The Rise Up Against Gender-Based Violence organization works in tangent with Sonke Gender Justice. They're just 2 of many non-governmental organizations taking up this fight of women abuse and violation. Yolisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Meanwhile, the 12th Women's Affairs Ministerial Meeting of the Commonwealth is currently being held in Nairobi. The aim of the conference is to encourage more political and leadership engagement of women, as well as advocating for more economic and entrepreneurial opportunities. Here are views from Egypt on gender equality.
There is a lot to change in the Arab world. We still have a concept that a woman is second to a man, and that men should be more entrusted with certain positions. Women, however, have proven their worth in any place they work at. A woman is capable. I wish society would change their views on women.
As a lawyer, I can tell that legislation gives women a lot of rights and equal chances. Law has been on her side for long. Yes, still men are taking the lead in many fields, but women are challenging this though.
Well, gender-based violence is among the issues to be discussed at the Commonwealth Ministerial Conference for Women here in Nairobi. Well, for more on this, we are now joined by Cheryl Halubani, a social activist and the head of the Frida Hartley Shelter for Women and Children in Johannesburg. Thank you very much for joining us. Outside of South Africa, how big a problem is gender-based violence on the continent? What kind of issues do you come across in your work?
Hi, Karen. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Did you hear my first question? I'll repeat that. Outside of South Africa...
Can you please repeat that for me?
Yes, of course. Outside of South Africa, how big a problem is gender-based violence on the continent, and what are the issues that you come across in your work?
I mean, just as stated right now, that the GBV, our femicide rate is 5 times higher than the global average. So outside of South Africa, it's not such a big issue as it is in here. And we have seen many cases of young women who disappear and end up dying because of many factors. Being the police not being able to protect them, or individuals themselves being molested, or just disappearing, or intimate partners that are killing or beating our women. So we have a bigger issue in South Africa than it is out there.
And Cheryl, women in Africa often complain that issues on gender violence have been confined to conference plenary sessions without practical opportunities. What must authorities do, would you say, to address the issue?
I didn't get the question properly, Karen. Can you please repeat that?
Yes. Well, women in Africa have often complained that these issues of gender-based violence are often confined to conference plenary sessions without practical opportunities. What would you say authorities need to do?
There's a lot that can be done, and I think I also just couldn't hear the question, but I'll just answer the way I'm thinking you've asked. There's a lot of measures that need to be done. However, I think it has to start from our authorities, from our police services. If they can understand how to deal with victims of GBV, victims of rape, victims of abuse, we will then be able to end the scourge. But until we can get it right from that authority perspective and also from our government perspective, we are seeing a lot of women right now who have mobilized themselves, who are marching, who are striking because they are tired and they feel unsafe. And unfortunately, gender-based violence has taken their basic human rights. They fear to go to the gym. They fear to go to the post office. They fear to go out with their own friends because they don't know what the outcome would be. So until we can get it right from the perspective of me being in trouble and being able to pick up a phone call and be able to call people in power, the police, and them reacting in the manner that they should be in that particular moment, apprehending rapists, apprehending abusers, then I think we would be on the right track. And also we're focusing at the moment on, it's the I'm Not Next campaign, and we urging women to speak out and say if they've been in such situations. However, we do not have facilities to then accommodate them when they do speak out. So we do need the help of the government to be able to provide safe havens like the shelter that I'm currently working for, where the women can be able to be put in those safe havens and are basically far away from their abusers or perpetrators.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, Cheryl. That was Cheryl Halubani there, a social activist and the head of the Frida Hartley Shelter for Women and Children in Johannesburg. Well, we are now going to return to our top story, and that is on the presidential elections in Tunisia. And joining us now for more is CGTN's Adnan Chawashi, who is in Tunis for us. What do you make of those results pitting Kais Saied and Nabil Karoui against each other in a runoff?
Actually, this was both unexpected and unprecedented in the history of Tunisia, that two outsiders, that they have been described by observers here in Tunisia, are leading the first round of the elections. Nabil Karoui is a media tycoon, a businessman, a well-known man not only in Tunisia but also in North Africa in general, because he has one of the most important TV channels in the region, Nesma TV, which is well known in Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Libya, and in the region in general. And he's also well known for his humanitarian caravans, because he toured the whole country to help the poor and the needy. So the man is well known and is very, very powerful as a businessman and as a media tycoon. And on the other side, you have an ordinary man who spent less than $300 on his campaign, who did not have an office, who did not have the support of the businessmen and of the media. An ordinary citizen, an expert in constitutional law, who used to be invited by Tunisian and foreign media to talk about the constitution and about the law in general, who ended up in the first round of the elections in Tunisia. This is unprecedented, but it's also a vote was described as a reaction against the system, against the establishment in Tunisia, both against the ruling and the opposition parties in Tunisia. This is why especially Tunisian youths voted for two outsiders, because they are fed up of empty promises after the 2011 popular uprising in Tunisia, and they are looking for change, and change now is believed to be in the hands of these two men, Nabil Al-Karoui and Qais Said.
And Adnan, without a constitutional court in place, how will emerging issues be addressed, including the runoff? And of course, one of the candidates, as you've been saying, is in jail. Will he get immunity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Talking about the Constitutional Court is a very important point. And one of the candidates, actually, Qais Said, said that he will address this issue from the first week in office. We haven't heard Nabil Karoui yet because he is still in jail, as you have said. But the EZ, the Higher Independent Authority for Elections, said that if Nabil Karoui is elected in the second round of the elections, they will address this issue and will contact the Tunisian parliament. They will put this in the hands of the Tunisian parliament, because the Tunisian parliament can then find a solution with the judiciary system. The EZ, the Independent Authority for Elections, is totally independent, but it does not interfere in ongoing cases. This is the issue that will be addressed by Tunisian legislators, because both lawyers and judges do not have an answer to this question. The campaign of Nabil Karoui has called for his immediate release because he was arrested on suspicion of money laundering. His supporters say he was arrested for political reasons, while the Ministry of Justice said that he was arrested on suspicion on money laundering, and that his case started in 2016, and that the legal procedure has lasted 3 years, and this is the length of any case in Tunisia, especially corruption cases. So the next few days will be very interesting for Tunisians who are following the political debate, who are following the campaigns, because two unknown people, two anti-system, anti-establishment people are leading both the polls and also the first round of the elections. But it's certain that legislators, lawyers and judges will have to address this issue and to find an urgent solution to the situation of Nabil Karoui this week before the next vote, the next presidential vote, i.e. the second round of the election.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. That was CGTN's Adnan Chouachi there in Tunis for us following the elections in the country. We are going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including Sudan's Prime Minister heads to Egypt for talks. And we take a look at one of Robert Mugabe's enduring legacies in Zimbabwe: education.
For lucrative economic data out of the country, the country's foreign currency reserves. With a dedicated and diverse team of anchors, CGTN now brings Africa to the palm of your hand.
I'm Penina Karibe in the heart of Nairobi, which is bustling.
From everyday heroes to the continent's most powerful figures, we bring their voices to you.
We haven't changed. And this is something most of us are very excited about.
We bring you news that's changing perspectives. News that brings Africa to the world. CGTN. See the difference. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Sudan's Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok is heading to Cairo for his second foreign trip since taking office. Hamdok's trip to Egypt comes within the framework of strengthening relations and enhancing cooperation with its neighbours. Last week, Hamdok was in Juba for a two-day visit that focused on re-establishing ties on trade, ending border disputes and ensuring free movement of people. Meanwhile, France has pledged support for Sudan. Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian announced $66 million in aid for the country's transitional authorities. He was speaking in Khartoum, where he also paid tribute to peaceful protests that led to the ousting of former President Omar al-Bashir in April.
We will help Sudan to normalize its situation with international financial institutions and help making steps to dealing with its external debt.
We have also spoken about the importance of peace. The challenges that faced Sudan are not only related to the difficulties of the transition towards civilian democratic rule, but also to reaching complete fair peace so that the process of building a sustainable democracy is completed.
Zimbabwe's Vice President Kembo Mahadi is in South Sudan for a two-day visit. South Sudan's government says it aims to strengthen ties with Zimbabwe in the fields of agriculture, education and mining. CGTN's Patrick Oyet now reports.
South Sudan's government says it needs the support of Zimbabwe as it tries to implement a peace deal it signed with opposition groups last year. Zimbabwe's vice president arrived in Juba on Monday for a trip which includes talks with South Sudan's president and the Speaker of Parliament. A unity government is due to be formed in South Sudan in November this year. The current institution tasked with setting up what's needed to form a government is known as the National Pre-Transitional Committee. It is made up of representatives of all parties signatory to the agreement and is on the agenda for Vice President Mahadi.
You will also be meeting with the National Pre-Transitional Committee so that you get an update on the current status of the peace agreement, the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement.
Zimbabwe has been offering scholarships to a number of South Sudanese students. Zimbabwe is also experienced in agriculture and mining sectors in which Juba says it can expand its expertise by improving ties with Harare. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
One of former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe's enduring legacies will be his commitment to education at a personal and national level, which led the country to achieve one of the highest literacy rates on the continent.
It's here in Zimba where Robert Mugabe is getting his final farewell that his love for reading and academics began. He was educated at the Roman Catholic Kutama College next door to his home and then later went on to study teaching. After joining politics, he was jailed, but that did not diminish his appetite for knowledge, according to a priest who visited him often.
I was appointed chaplain to the prisons, where he was officially. So with that appointment, I was able to arranged my program to see the detainees and the prisoners of all degrees. So it is here that I found him already studying. And we continued that program of helping the detainees to study, because we thought if we don't study, if we don't understand our problem, how are we going to lead the country?
That dedication to academic pursuit was the hallmark of Mugabe's life, during which he earned 7 university degrees, 5 of them undergraduate and 2 masters.
He had a magical memory. He had that strictness. He was highly mentally, for lack of a word, he was a giant. He was a giant.
He was also committed to ensuring that every child went to school, which led to the implementation of education for all policies, raising his country's literacy to one of the highest in Africa.
I went to school in the rural areas just after independence, when it was announced that all children could attend school for free. That's how I managed to get to Form 6, something that would not have been possible if it were not for him.
Even in the latter days of his presidency, his focus on education continued at a personal level through the establishment of a Mugabe family school in Mazoe district. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Let's now cross over to Senegal, where a group of young Chinese and Senegalese volunteers are trying to improve school infrastructure and learning conditions by renovating classrooms in high schools on the outskirts of the country's capital, Dakar. CGTN's Brian Toussaint now with the details.
The Pro-Suburban Project is an initiative of the Association of Mayors of Senegal and the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries. It was launched in 2015 and constitutes a new focal point in amicable relations between the two peoples.
I am very impressed by the young Chinese and Senegalese volunteers because they have carried out the mission assigned to them with selflessness and professionalism. Their unity is truly a manifestation of a strong humanism and commitment to friendship between the two countries.
The young Chinese have shown a hard-working and friendly image. Both teams have contributed to mutual understanding and friendship between the Chinese and Senegalese youth during the past 2 months, despite facing many challenges. I'm very impressed.
A total of 3 buildings with 17 classrooms and an administrative block have been completely renovated and equipped through the project.
My heart is filled with a feeling of joy and happiness for what this project has done for our school. 17 of our rooms have been completely renovated. The administrative block has also been renovated. I'm very happy with the work that's been done.
The project also enabled the young Chinese and Senegalese volunteers to learn different skills from each other, being that the majority of them are experts in the fields of construction and renovation. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
The Chinese embassy in Senegal has just celebrated the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. About 500 guests were invited to the Museum of Black Civilization in Dakar. Among the guests were heads of diplomatic missions, representatives of international organizations, and Senegalese government representatives. In his speech, China's ambassador to Senegal, Zhang Sun, commented on the significance of the 70th anniversary. In the hall of the Museum of Black Civilization, guests visited a photo exhibition of the culture and friendship between Senegal and China.
This year marks the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. In these past times, under the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, China has undergone significant changes. It has now become the world's second largest economy with a GDP of 13.6 trillion US dollars in 2018. This is 174 times more than it was in 1952, and it has been an average annual growth of 8.1%.
Il m'est agréable de vous adresser, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur.
I am pleased to address you, Mr. Ambassador, on behalf of His Excellency Mr. Macky Sall, President of the Republic, of the government, and of the Senegalese people. Our warm congratulations to you and your high authorities, as well as our wishes for happiness and more progress and prosperity for the friendly people of China.
Baba Mal, je souhaite.
I'm Baba Mal. I wish an excellent 70th birthday to this brother country, which is China. We rely a lot on the relationships that exist between us, and especially on the cultural relations that we begin to build between us. And that is for future generations, so we can have elements of sharing. Happy anniversary.
All the business news coming up for you after the break, including United Nations rules on fuel shipping to hit Nigeria as the cost of diesel goes up. And Zimbabwe's economy hurts as foreign currency inflows shrink.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and Global Business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The price of diesel should significantly rise next year once United Nations rules on cleaning up international shipping take effect on January the 1st. In countries like Nigeria, where most businesses depend on diesel-run generators, these costs are expected to be passed on to the consumer, hurting the economy. CGTN's Alexandria Majala takes up the story.
Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos, is plunged into darkness several times a day. Then its generators roar and the lights flood back on. The country is one of the world's largest economies, where businesses rely heavily on diesel-powered generators. More than 70% of its firms own or share the units. Government data shows generators provide at least 14 gigawatts of power annually, dwarfing the 4 gigawatts supplied on average by the country's electricity grid. Now diesel costs could spike globally, and many businesses are not prepared.
If the price of diesel goes up, it becomes more difficult for us to operate because consumers, considering the characteristic of the market in which we operate, are not ready to bear the price. And so it becomes more difficult, for us to think about expansion. First is survival, So we will survive the situation if the price of diesel goes up. This is a question I cannot really answer.
Diesel prices are expected to surge as the United Nations rules at cleaning up international shipping come into effect next year. Many ships are expected to burn distillates instead of dirtier fuel oil. While estimates vary widely, experts warn that prices could surge by nearly 20%.
The price increases may be sharper than most people expect, especially because diesel is not is deregulated in Nigeria already, so there's no subsidy on diesel. And as we've seen over time, the price of diesel has moved along with the international market. So if new rules cause the price to rise in the international market, we expect that will cascade into Nigeria as well.
Nigeria's population is growing at 2.6% each year, yet 40% of the population do not have power. West Africa's biggest economy has partnered with German engineering group Siemens to triple the country's reliable power supply to 11,000 megawatts by 2023. However, such plans have previously failed.
Many businesses may go under, businesses may struggle to survive, or in the best case scenario would at least downsize and shut down some production capacity. Because if you can't pay for the diesel for production, you can't pass the price in for increased costs in diesel, the next logical thing to do is to shut down some of that production capacity and produce at the quantity that the demand can carry the price you are willing to sell at.
While many Nigerian households and small business generators are powered by price-capped gasoline, the big generators for larger farms, apartment complexes and more substantial homes can only run on diesel. Alexandria Majala for CGTN.
Well, further south in Zimbabwe, it could be a case of the worst possible timing. Zimbabwe's foreign currency inflows are shrinking at a time when the country needs them to import fuel, electricity and resources for the upcoming agricultural season. Farai Mwakatuya has that story.
Export receipts for the first half of the year were $2.58 billion, down from $3.4 billion during the same period last year, according to the central bank, which cites currency, payment and pricing issues affecting the mining sector for the reduction. But the 24% slump could be symptomatic of broader macroeconomic challenges.
You know, this year the economy is actually weakened or is weakening as a result of a number of factors. The issue with electricity, energy, fuel, and also agriculture has been badly affected by the El Nino-induced drought. So production this year is actually dampened. And when production is depressed, it also affects your exports.
Zimbabwe is experiencing chronic high inflation, which has affected export competitiveness, and its recently reintroduced local currency has rapidly depreciated, losing more than 80% of its value since February.
The central bank claims to have addressed the concerns from exporters, in particular mining houses, who have sought to retain a higher percentage of their export proceeds in hard currency.
However, authorities have been cautioned that there are no quick fixes to the export woes.
In the long term, medium to long term, we need to be investing in the key enablers. Energy is the biggest enabler actually to doing business. We need to improve our energy generation capacity, and we have a lot of potential really that we can actually harness and lever to ensure that we are self-sufficient in terms of energy production.
Zimbabwe is currently facing a severe electricity crisis, which has necessitated more imports worth more than $900,000 per week. It also needs scarce foreign currency for fuel, wheat and inputs like fertilizer as the next farming season nears. Farai Mwakatuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
The second All-Africa Post-Harvest Congress and Exhibition is taking place at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. China has sent a delegation to the four-day conference and is sharing its experience on food security. CGTN's Brian Tucson reports.
Every 2 years, the AU Commission holds the All-Africa Post-Harvest Congress and Exhibition. The purpose of the meeting is to implement 2014's Malabo Declaration, which called for reduced postnatal food losses in Africa by 50% by the year 2025. This year's theme is Post-Harvest Loss Reduction and Agro-Processing, the drivers of agricultural transformation in Africa.
We Chinese always say people regard food as their prime want. China attaches great importance to food security and has many excellent success experiences. This time we are working with the African Union to understand the current situation, make our best and work together to solve the problem of post-harvest loss.
The Chinese delegation shared their experiences in guaranteeing food security for their people. In the past 40 years, China has made great achievements in poverty reduction and social development and has successfully helped hundreds of millions of people out of hunger.
China is also participating very actively in this Congress. They are also bringing their technologies to share with us. They are also going to be participating in most of our panel discussions as well to share with us most of the new technologies that China has also put in place. So we are really looking forward to very strong engagement.
Experts say that Africa is the most food insecure continent on the planet, with about 25% of its people suffering from malnutrition. In sub-Saharan Africa alone, the total quantitative food loss has been estimated to be over 100 million metric tons per year. The lost grain alone could meet the annual food requirements of about 48 million people. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
Saudi Arabia's oil supply is fully back online after weekend attacks halved output. The kingdom will achieve 11 million barrels per day by the end of September and 12 million barrels per day by the end of November. Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman also said that the world's top oil exporter would maintain full oil supplies to customers this month. He said Saudi Arabia would keep its role as the secure supplier of global oil markets, adding that the kingdom needed to take strict measures to prevent further attacks.
Over the last 2 days, the damage has been contained and more than half of the production capabilities that were damaged as a result of the attack have been recovered. The company will meet its commitments to its customers for this month by withdrawing its reserves of crude oil and making some changes to some oils with the view that complete production capabilities are restored to 11 million barrels per day by the end of September and to 12 million barrels per day by the end of November.
Turning to the global auto sector, the ongoing third German-Chinese Automobile Congress in Ingolstadt in Germany aims to strengthen cooperation between Germany and China. More than 400 participants, including company representatives, government officials and experts from the two countries, are attending the Congress. Topics being discussed range from technological advances to talent recruitment. The Chinese and German auto sectors have long-standing close ties, but representatives say there's still room for further cooperation.
So what we're thinking in the future, especially for the car industry, it will be going to be automated and it will be intelligent and also it will be electric and connection. So this is we can use our ICT technology to enhance them to be a digital transformation.
And the world is going global, so a car is not from Germany or from China or from America. So in every car you have parts from different companies. And so it's networking. So we have a lot of specialists, we have a lot of network, and at the end we want to get a product out of it which is the best for the customer. If it's a Chinese customer or a European or German or Bavarian customer.
We're going to a short break now. Don't go away. Lots more to come, including Ghana's Accra to use popular graffiti art to attract tourists.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes. The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Graffiti art is gaining popularity in Ghana's capital, Accra, and the city is looking to use it to attract tourists. A new project is giving local artists the chance to use art to tell the stories of their country. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports now from Accra.
Graffiti artist Mohamed Awudu's passion for art comes from his experiences growing up in a suburb of Accra, Nima.
Sometimes these walls are empty, like people don't even paint them. So using artwork is very good. Use it to educate people about the social issues happening here in Nima.
Awudu says young people in this community are vulnerable to social vices such as drug abuse. He wants to use his art to try and change that. Mohamed Awudu formed the Ghana Association of Graffiti and Mural Fine Artists in 2015 with the support of his friends to help nurture young talents.
Through the Accra for Arts project, he's hoping to beautify the entire city with his paintings.
Now, Audu is helping lead a project sponsored by the Accra Metropolitan Assembly to beautify the capital city.
We want to change all the streets, like the major street where they put, to stop people from posting unnecessary posters, people littering stuff. So, and we use this to create more tourist attractions.
These walls have murals displaying the culture and traditions of the Ghanaian people.
What we are trying to achieve is to give artists the space in Accra to exhibit their talent and their worth, so that people can see who we are as the people of Accra.
Unlike cities like New York and Cape Town, graffiti and street art are not popular in Ghana. But the people behind Accra for Art hope to put Accra on the map for graffiti fans in Africa and beyond. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
The latest edition of the Third World Festival has taken place in Dakar. This cultural event aims to instill the values of African traditional culture, mainly in young people. CGTN's Daniel Arapmoy with the details.
Organizers of the event hope to represent the culture of all third world countries. They also hope to urge young people to safeguard African culture.
We danced, sang, laughed, and did a lot of things. I think it was very pleasant. Children from all neighborhoods gathered for the festival. We really enjoyed ourselves.
The guest artists at the event mainly composed of young individuals. Their vibrant and bubbly personalities helped his conveying information to the children much faster.
Africa is a continent with different cultures. Our culture is the strength of Africans because it is very rich and varied. We must preserve it and promote it to ensure that the world respects us.
It's a great honor for us to come here and teach our cultures to the children. Through songs and dance, they will remember the values they are taught for a long time. It is up to us to teach them that, because no one else will come to do it for us.
The event's organizers intend to involve other cultural actors from the countries of the sub-region for the next edition. They also plan to introduce new sections to offer better moments of socialization to children. Daniel Arapmoy, CGTN.
We've got all the sports news coming up for you after the break, including